Hi everyone, this is Zeta Zan, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the recent news of Donald Trump being tested and being positive for COVID 19. So, as you can see on his tweet on October 2nd, he found out the news at almost 1 a.m. He was admitted into the hospital at Walter Reed in Maryland, and he had put out a couple of videos about his care. This was a video that was produced on October 3rd. I will link it in the description down below. He also released another video on October 4th saying how well he's doing with the disease and that he's actually overcoming it. This is a Trump parade that was going on while he was in the hospital. People were lining the streets and honking and rallying along with the Donald Trump, trying to cheer him on to get better. So you can see that he's got a lot of supporters that have been trying to help him out with prayers and thoughts, but a lot of doctors that have also been supporting him with a lot of information, as well as drugs that have been tested out on him. So one thing that I wanted to share is that on October 5th, now the original date was October 2nd when he first found out, and on October 5th he's being released from the hospital. So one of the things that he really mentioned that struck out to me is don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. And my personal thoughts and feelings about this is so much has changed over the past couple of months in America. We've shut down our entire economy. We've shut down movie theaters. We shut down our whole way of life over this virus. Was it all worth it? Something that I think that people should know is the CDC released the information about COVID, and they determined the infection fatality ratio. So now, fatality ratio is the number of cases divided the number of deaths divided by the number of cases, and you get a fatality rate. So in this fatality rate, for people from young to 49, the fatality rate is 0.0007. From 50 to 69, it's 0.025. And then it goes up an incredible amount when you're 70 years old and more, 0.028. So in terms of what we're talking about here, Donald Trump, a man that is 74 years old and has a diet of pretty much McDonald's and junk food, who doesn't drink any alcohol, who's mildly obese, survived COVID. And with all the amount of drugs that we now have and the knowledge we have of COVID, we can keep people alive and in good shape if they get infected with this disease and they get it caught at an early enough time. Something that I really feel like we've done in America is we've kind of switched. What are the survival rates of COVID? We're seeing survival rates all around the world of 99%, 0.99%, 0.983, 0.95, 0.94, 0.95. So was it all worth it? All these lockdowns, the millions of people unemployed, all these different industries that are completely devastated. AMC and Regal Films are talking about not able to handle all of the funds, so they're actually thinking of doing bankruptcy right now. Was it worth it? So a lot of the fatality rates that had happened with COVID were linked to nursing homes. A lot of these nursing homes where the majority of the deaths occurred. So my takeaway from all of this is Donald Trump just went through a traumatic experience with COVID. I kind of blame him in some ways. I think he wasn't competent enough to make sure that COVID didn't get into the White House. He didn't follow the CDC procedures of 6 foot distancing and always wearing a mask when there's groups of people, even outside. But was it worth it? Was it worth it? Should we live in fear all the time because of COVID? And is this something that we allowed the fear to create us in this mental dysphoria that we had? We allowed the government to assert itself in ways that it's never done before. All the authoritarianism that has occurred, the draconian shutdowns. They're talking about New York shutting down parts of New York, not allowing you to go to school, not allowing you to do business. They're going to keep the restaurants open only outside. And I'm just looking at the world and I just can't understand it. This thing is so survivable. It's literally got an infection fatality rate comparable to the common cold. You're more likely to get infected with a cold and die of that than as likely as you are to get COVID. I think also something that people have not taken into consideration. So America is not the most healthiest nation. Unfortunately, we have a lot of obese people in America. We have a lot of people with heart disease, hypertension, inflammation, and these are all personal lifestyle choices that have led to us having these huge amounts of population of people who just didn't take care of themselves. So, on average, every year in America, over 655,000 people die from heart disease. And when you look at the CDC numbers, those 210,000 people that died, a lot of them had comorbidities, meaning that they had heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, they were obese, and on top of that, they had COVID. And one of any of these things could have made them have a fatality, but because they had COVID while they had these diseases, they ended up dying. So also the rate of deaths has been slowing dramatically. At the height of this, we were, losing over 1,000 people a day. Now it's less than 500. So I really feel like the doctors are getting a handling on this. They're really figuring out how to combat this disease. And I'm looking at the politics of what's going on in this country, and it just stuns me. The liberal Democrats are talking about shutting down the country again, shutting down parts of the states like New York and California. This is just, it's so frustrating and it makes me angry because if you look at the actual information, there's no reason to do this. We don't shut down, McDonald's because people die by the hundreds of thousands. We don't shut down the whole economy because a bad case of the flu came out this year. Why would we do that? And living is about taking on risk. You could be driving at any time of the day and you could run into someone, but you chose to take on that risk. Driving is a risk. Living is a risk. Driving a bicycle down the street is a risk. Life is full of risk, and we don't just not live because there's risks in the world. I just want us to get back to work. I want us to really look at the country as a whole. Was it worth it destroying our economy for potentially years to come over a virus? Now, on the other end, playing devil's advocate, this was a novel virus. We didn't know in the very beginning what would occur with this. This was all new to us. We didn't know how bad it was going to be. There were scientists saying that 2 million people could die by the end of the year, and only 200,000 people died. I give a lot of credit to Donald Trump. He shut down the borders at the very beginning of the year. He had no mask, no ventilators in the supply. That we had to, and all of the PPE was bought up by China previous to this coronavirus outbreak in America. All of this, we had to literally restructure our whole industry in here in America to make all of our PPE equipment to actually protect our frontline workers and make masks available. I remember in March and April, you couldn't buy masks. You know, it was just not available. They were all bought out. And China was threatening not to send us any mass shipments. You know, 90% of all of the PPE was being built in China, and they were using all of that and buying and purchasing most of it. So we had to restructure our economy. And I think going away from this, you know, in a year or two from now, when we're thinking back about coronavirus, I think the main thing that we need to take away from this is we need to end our reliance on China. We need to take back our industry and make sure that it's here in America, especially for our most common things. You know, I read this report about insulin and not just insulin, but a number of different drugs that we make over in China that we don't actually have the ability to make here in America anymore because we sold off that manufacturing capability. And these are drugs that people rely on in order to survive. If you don't have insulin and you're a diabetic, after a few hours you could possibly have a attack and die. So these are life-threatening things. And we should never be beholden to other countries for these types of equipment and drugs and and our just whole way of life needs to change after this. This is a big wake up call for, I think, America. We need to really reassess everything that we're doing, and yeah, that's my whole takeaway from this. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like and subscribe to my channel and share it with any of your friends. Maybe you have a conservative group or a political group that you like to share it out with. I want to start making maybe weekly or bi-weekly videos like this and talk about politics, talk about different things going on in my mind. But I want to have a positive spin. I don't want to talk about, you know, America is a failing state. I want to talk about America is a rising state. We have so much possibility in this country. We have the ability to really reinvent ourselves out of this experience. Thank you very much.